In today's episode, I'm going to be comparing my two favorite cameras in a wedding environment. What is up, everybody? James Jackson here. I'm back again with another video. If you're new to my channel, I do tips and tricks, go with camera news, and also do gear reviews on cameras, lenses, lights, and everything. So if you like the content here, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell so you can stay up to date on all the content going forward. All right, so I'm back again. This time I am comparing my two favorite cameras to film with currently, and that is obviously the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K and the camera we are filming on right now, the Canon C200. And I know I said earlier that I wasn't sure if I would be doing another comparison video between these two cameras, simply because a lot of the things about the 4K, which I already did a comparison video of. If you haven't seen my comparison of the C200 and the 4K, definitely go check it out. I make sure to leave a link in the description below, as well as a note card here as well. A lot of my reasons were basically the same or intensified. However, there are some differences with the 6K, and also a lot of you guys just really wanted to hear more about doing a comparison between these two cameras and sort of get to understand. So I'm going to be doing more, but sort of more this time. I'm going to be breaking it down into different work environments, so different types of shooting environments. And today's episode is all about weddings. Wedding season for 2019 is over for me, but I've had a lot of experiences filming with both cameras, the C200 and the Pocket 6K, both using them in the same wedding in the last couple of weeks. So I figured today would be a good day to sort of go over and see where do these two cameras sort of compare. And I know a lot of people are looking at comparing it like what the C200, look at the features of the C200 and think that, well, that's clearly a better camera for weddings. And to a certain extent, I do agree. However, I do believe, look, a lot of my people that I work with, especially a lot of my friends who do film weddings, film on this camera as well as the Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, because the image coming out of those cameras are so good that it's hard to not consider them, especially given the fact that now that you have Blackmagic RAW in such a compressed RAW codec, you can actually film entire wedding days shooting nothing but RAW, which you can't do with the C200. And you may be asking why you would do that, and I will get to that in a second. But first, I want to clear the air really quickly about a couple things. First and foremost, if anybody coming through the comment sections or anybody just coming in that's talking to you personally saying, you know, why are you considering this camera, considering this camera, you should go with this camera, or that camera's not made for that at all. And while there is some truth that certain cameras are better suited for certain other environments, ultimately the camera is like the sorting hat in the Harry Potter series. You are going to be the camera and the wand, or I guess the better analysis would be the wand. There's for every camera, for every person, there's a camera for them. And look, if you have a camera, regardless if it's necessarily ideal for maybe what you're trying to film with, if you can make it work and you love working with that camera, if you love playing with that camera, whether because you know the camera or because you just like the image that the camera produces or the workflow of the camera, then make it. As long as you can make it work, you can shoot it for anything. Because I've had one particular frequent commenter of mine talk about how, you know what, the C200 is not a real film camera, and I tell you that is BS. The C200 is just as much of a film camera as the Pocket Cinema Camera 6K and the Arri Alexa and the Red cameras. It's all about how you work with it, just like every other camera. And that's why I also say the Pocket Cinema Camera 6K is just as much of a wedding video camera as the C200, as long as you know how to work with it. So that cleared out of the way, I want to start off by going with the things that clearly are the advantages of both cameras, and then I'm going to sort of go more into the different aspects of weddings with the preparation, the ceremony, and the reception, and how each one fares and where I prefer one another. Again, a lot of this is from my own personal experiences filming with both cameras. So let's get some of the advantages out of the way. Let's start with the Pocket 6K. Well, the image quality. You got 6K resolution, which gives you a lot of room to sort of bump the resolution, crop in, and really restructure your quality. And also, it's a great B-roll camera. So if you want to get the textures of a bride's dress, this is an amazing camera to have. If there's some sort of details on the wedding rings that you can get during the preparation ceremony, this is a great camera to have. This is also great if you're doing super slow motion, like 120 frames per second. This kicks the C200 slow motion's ass, simply because it is so good, and you got the higher resolution of 2.8K, so you don't even have to use just 1080. Now, granted, it is cropped, and the C200's 120 isn't cropped, but even cropped in, the Pocket 6K's 120 is far better than the C200's 120 from my own personal experiences with weddings. And then the final thing is low light. Now, the C200 overall is relatively less noisy than the Pocket 6K, but in terms of color retention and just terms of the details of the image, which to me is far more important than necessarily noise, because you can always remove the noise. The Pocket 6K is actually the best camera that I've actually come across that can do that. In terms of low light, in terms of color retention, color accuracy, and detail, it is the best that I have came across. So, in those categories, the Pocket 6K is the clear, better suited camera. Now let's go into the C200. C200. Dual pixel autofocus. So if you have a lot of moving shots, particularly the bridal procession, where the bridal parties are coming in for the start of the ceremony, C200 able to just go from one area to the end. First dance, the first dance. So things with a lot of movement. The dual pixel autofocus just keeps it up. The other thing that the C200 is better at than the Pocket 6K, my personal opinion, is maintaining the highlights, especially which we'll go into a little bit better. But the highlights are a little bit better on the C200. It's got all the ergonomic features. It's a workhorse. You can true relay recording and dual recording with the C200. All the ergonomic features about the camera are like clear winners. The fact that it comes with a microphone mount, it has true professional audio exports, the full-size XLRs. I mean, this does too, but this has full-size XLRs, on and on and on. So mainly what I'm trying to get at is that the C200 is great at just getting things quickly, which is obviously key for weddings. When you need to just go in, get the shot, and just take it. The Canon does it well, and it does it amazingly well, which, as we will go into later, is really, really key compared to the Pocket Cinema Camera, where you have to decide if you need to screw on the NDs or put a matte box on, compared to the C200, which has built-in NDs. When you have to sort of quickly, the battery life is a little bit better. Otherwise, you have to put a V-mount battery on the Pocket 6K in order for me to truly, really do it justice. Now, there's obviously been a few more additional items that came out to help support the 6K, including a very interesting top handle that I am definitely going to try to get my hands on to see how that works. But overall, just in terms of functionality, the C200 is a far better use than the Pocket 6K. Well, I won't say far better. It's a lot easier for use. I can personally feel like I can hand the C200 off to someone who has never used the C200, and they can sort of just explain a couple details, and they will overall get the assessment. Whereas if I try to hand the Pocket 6K off to someone, that is not necessarily the case. they may not, and it may take a little bit longer to sort of understand and wrap around what they need to do with it. So let's start off with the beginning, if you're going into the preparation. So for me personally, majority of the time I would go with the C200. Now granted, one of the things I was just talking about was key about the Pocket 6K was the fact that it has such great details, and you can get some great details, especially on the rings, the bride's dress, and you can go in and get some nice details. Well, but you can still do that with the C200. But the key thing that the C200, and why I would choose it in terms of preparation, is a lot of times the preparation happens inside the hotel. And with the hotel in the morning or closer to like high noon, where there's a lot of light hitting the windows, and in a room that's majority of times, if you've done weddings, the interior of the room that you're in is relatively dark compared to the brightness of the window that they typically be outside. And because of that, with the built-in NDs, it's so much easier to get to maintain the highlights with the C200 than it is with the Pocket Cinema Camera 6K. But also more importantly, when you're filming RAW with the C200, which I do with the preparation ceremony, I film RAW because the way the highlight recovery and the way you can retain highlights is much greater than the Pocket 6K. The highlight roll-off is better on the C200 than it is on the Pocket 6K. One of the few areas I would say in terms of image quality is better on the C200 than the Pocket 6K. The highlight roll-off is just, it's so much easier to maintain things, even if it seems like it's blown out. So if you're trying to get that back window as well as keep the bride somewhere close to properly exposed, it's so much easier to do that than necessarily with the Pocket 6K, even though it does have the highlight recovery. And if you shoot at ISO 800, you can get a lot of that stuff from the windows, but you get a lot more from the Canon C200. So, and that's the main reason. The other main reason is just the fact that you got to be, especially with the preparation portion where it's relatively trying to get, there's a lot going on, and you want to try to get as much as you can during that part. They may be reading their wedding vows or it's like special notes to one another. You got first looks. You got to get the rings. You got to get the dress put on. There may be some small little chatters you may want to put in. All of that is a lot easier to do with the Canon C200, where you can just quickly go, snap, and grab so many different things quickly, compared to necessarily the Pocket Cinema Camera 6K. Also because of the autofocus. It's so much easier to make sure you got what you need in focus compared to trying to look onto the screen while it's a good screen on the Pocket Cinema Camera 6K. I cannot begin to tell many times that I'm sitting here trying to get the shot and trying to get focus on a Sigma 18-35, which has a very short focus throw, is a lot harder than trying to putting that same 18-35 on the Canon C200, where it just goes from snaps and focus every single time. For that, overall, the preparation, I give it to the Canon C200. Now let's go to the ceremony. And this is sort of where it's kind of split. It kind of splits, and it's relatively even. With the C200, again, you got the autofocus, and that's definitely key for the bridal procession, where you got to come in and you're getting the bride coming in. But honestly, if you're good with the lens, you can relatively keep them relevant focused, especially since the bride is coming down relatively slowly, so it gives you time to keep track of the focus compared to situations where you have to move really quickly. And also, there's a lot of times where you may be able to have, if you're on a team, you can have somebody catch the other parts. But obviously, autofocus is still a winner for the C200 in this case, because you can track the bride all the way down the entire time. Because a lot of the times the lighting is not as chaotic during the ceremony portions. And what I mean by that is not necessarily it's lit well, but there's not a lot of high contrast lighting situations. A lot of times it's either indoors where the lighting is roughly relatively safe, or it's outdoors and it's put in some sort of area where it's open. Typically, that's been my experience. So the highlight of, in terms of the ceremony, is not necessarily as needed. So the image quality, again, the details, being able to punch in, and especially when you maybe caught the bride and you're using maybe something like a 7200 or a long focal throw lens, and you're like not just there to get the emotion on this in terms of distance, having 6K and being able to punch in and just so you can really see the emotion, get the emotions of either the bride or the groom or family members. That is such a huge thing during the ceremonies. And also, you still got audio inputs, XLR Mini, and mic jack, so you can mic up the groom as well as like the person giving the performer, the service performer. So, as well as the C200. So, in the ceremony, it's kind of split, in my personal opinion, of which camera. It's like you got the C200 with the great autofocus that's able to just lock on and really just keep track of the subject. But then you also got the details. Again, you got the details of the Pocket 6K and being able to just get those emotions, and also to be able to punch in really, really tight and still get a nice clean image is a really, really helpful. So I'm gonna go kind of slightly split, but I'm kind of leaning more towards I'm kind of leaning a little bit more towards the Pocket 6K, but again, it's evenly split. Now let's go to the reception area. And I'll say this, the C200, especially when you're doing with all the dances, with all the speeches, it's great and it's wonderful to have, and it's a great camera. Especially, I want to talk about. There was the last most recent wedding we did. The first dance that the bride and groom did was actually a waltz, and they were just going up and down the dance floor. And it was a relatively large dance floor. I can tell you right now, it would have been a lot more challenging for me to try to get that whole thing on the Pocket 6K. However, with the C200, however, I did not lose focus one time. They were moving up and down. The groom was spinning his bride around. The Canon never lost focus one time during that whole first dance. So now we got an entire first dance, just nice clean shot that gives us wiggle room to make sure the shot we want is there. And I love that about the C200. When the father was giving his speech, and he got really, really emotional, I was able to just go right in on his face and focus on his face, and you were able to see all the emotions nice and clear. You got the nice facial expressions of the groom getting embarrassed as his best man was telling embarrassing college party stories. A lot of fun times. So that was the great thing about it. And it's also a really solid low light camera. Now, having all said that, if I had to choose a camera for the reception, I gotta go with the Pocket 6K. Again, the autofocus is the real big deal, the saving grace about the C200. And I'm not trying to knock the C200 in terms of this, but in reception where low light is critical, having to be able to film in underlit situations and delivering high quality, this just annihilates the C200. Oh, annihilation is not the good. It's so much better. It's just so much better. There's times I still can't believe how good it is. And again, it's not the fact that it's like super clean and not so noisy. It's more of the fact that it is so color accurate. The colors are accurate. I mean, I was filming in underlit situations on the C200, and it started to shift magenta the higher I went up. It started desaturating. As I went up in ISOs on the 6K, the colors remained the same, and not only that, they did not desaturate. They kept their saturation. They kept their color accuracy. To me, that is so much more valuable than necessarily, noise reduction, noise, simply because the noise on here still looks like film grain all the way up to 6400 ISO. You can easily film weddings, film up to 6400 ISO. Is it noisy? Yes, but it's totally able to be cleaned up. And also, if you're just careful with your ISO, you can easily just get a lot. I typically try to stay closer to the 1250 and 1600 simply because they give me some of the most cleanest blacks, but I'll still do 3200 ISO, and every so often I'll do 6400 ISO. But that's the range I typically stay in for low light filming, and this camera is it's just a beast in those settings. And so in terms of receptions, I gotta give it to the Pocket Cinema Camera, 6K. Anyway, that's just been my video. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to leave a like, leave a comment below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. And until next time, take care, everyone.